Hello and welcome to a new practice of the week. This week I want to explore leg movement. We'll be using a tennis ball, a block, and a strap to explore how our leg bone moves in our pelvis and to see what kind of things our body does when we make this movement. So you can come lie on your back in a rest position. Place your feet on the ground. You can place either your hands on your belly or on the ground next to you. And just first take a moment to notice how your body feels. Place your feet on the ground. Make a picture of how, in your mind, of how your feet are positioned. And as you think you have it clear, just give it a check to see if that what you think was your foot position is what actually is. Sometimes we think that our feet are straight and then there's one kind of like deviated, or they're both, or it's just different than what we imagined and what we think we sense. So it's very interesting, especially with the movements that we make in yoga therapy, to use mirrors, to record yourself, to just see if what you think is happening is actually happening. Because many times I've been very surprised. So it's awesome feedback. And just sense your buttocks on the ground, your sacrum, the bone between your butt cheeks. Notice if there's an arc around your lower back or not. It's your upper back on the ground, shoulder blades, shoulders. Notice the curve of your neck, the weight of your head, and the movement of your back. There, place your hands, if you can feel them, hip bones just below them, those pointy bits here. And as you lift your legs up, you can feel muscles get tense. You can see it in my trousers. As soon as I have the intention of lifting my leg, something moves here, and that's my hip flexor. It becomes active as I lift up my leg, and on the other side as well. So just see if you can find those, and just put your fingers on top of them. From there, you're going to open your knees out to the side, moving the leg in the pelvis, and just notice if these hip flexors want to become active or not. Whenever they do, just move your knees back to the center, and then try again, and just kind of sense what's happening, and can you allow those hip flexors to stay quiet. They don't have anything to do with the movement, because the knees are moving out to the side, the leg bone is moving out to the side, and nothing's moving up. So this flexion is not happening in this movement. But sometimes these flexors are awesome all-round helpers. When I started a year ago, my flexors were helping me in pretty much everything. Now, a lot less. And how that changed was by practicing and sensing them. Sensing the hip flexors themselves, sensing the rest of my body. When do they become active? And what else is becoming active as I do that? And can I just kind of soften them? Which in the beginning was like, no way. But in the end, it kind of worked. And that really is a compensation that my body had created that was helping me move, and that wasn't necessary anymore. So from there, you're gonna grab your belt and bring it around the leg. It doesn't have to be super snug, just snug enough so that your knees can be hip width apart. And just immediately go to the block as well. And the block will be in between the legs on the low side of the leg. So not in between the knees, but more in between the legs closer towards the groin. From there again, you'll place your hands on your hip flexors. And again, you'll alternate between moving the leg out into the belt and into the block. And just notice what that feels like if the hip flexors become active in either one of these movements. And if you can do less so that they don't become active. And then just kind of play around with when do they become active and how can I quiet them. And then also notice that maybe at some point your back wants to kind of round, kind of arch, or you have some kind of gripping in your belly that happens because your body's just kicking in other areas, or maybe your shoulders want to come up, or maybe you're clenching your jaw. You kind of want to rip apart the belt. So just kind of sense your body. And can you just move your leg bone in your pelvis? And it sounds so simple, and sometimes it just really isn't. Also notice how this feels for your lower back. Is there, turn it around because it's undoing itself. Is this creating comfort for your lower back or discomfort? Is it creating discomfort anywhere else in your body? And can you move in such a way that you don't get to the part where you sense discomfort, or is there always discomfort? And just kind of play around with what you sense and whether these flexors become active or not. Keep breathing. And then from there, let it go and remove the block and remove the belt. And then from here, take a moment to sense how do your legs feel now? Then you can lift up one leg into the air. You don't have to straighten it all the way. If you can, you can. If you don't, you don't. I cannot. And then you're going to rotate your leg in the pelvis. So again, it's just your leg that's moving. Notice as you lift your leg up, whether your pelvis is kind of doing that, kind of rolling to the side, or kind of like hiking up, so shortening in the waist. Just notice what is happening. Notice if at some point your pelvis kind of wants to round into the ground, or whether you can keep the curve that you have. And just go as far as maybe your back starts to round when you're here. Or if I go further, it wants to round when I'm here. And if I straighten my leg, I can't. And it wants to round. If I can straighten my leg here, and that's fine. Straighten. If I lift it more, it's just not happening. So I bend it a bit, and then from here, I play around with rotating my leg
in my pelvis without doing this. This appears as if my leg is rotating, but there's nothing happening because my pelvis is moving up. So there's nothing happening in the relation from my pelvis to my leg. And there's just my pelvis moving, which gives me the appearance of a leg moving, but we're looking for this movement. So we're also not looking for this movement. Sometimes we're kind of like moving it out to the side, which is an interesting movement to make, but it's not what we're looking for. So see if you can lift up your leg and turn it in pelvis. Notice if you can keep your belly soft or if it wants to help out. And if you can make the movement a bit fluent. My leg is a bit shaky, and I notice as soon as I move it in, it kind of wants to do that. So I'm just moving it in the range where, as far as I can sense, my body stays as quiet as is without me fixing anything, holding it in place, bracing, just from a place of softness. Changing leg. Keep on breathing. And really kind of notice if you can sense, like, here's my pelvis, here's my leg bone. Is this moving in relation to that? Just noticing that my lower belly wanted to kick in. If I force the movement a bit more here. Oh, now it doesn't. But before it did. So it's interesting to see that if you give it attention and you sense it, how things can change. And from here, bring your feet back to the ground. We'll take our tennis ball and we'll bring our hip on top of it. So I'll start with the left hip. I'm just going to kind of not roll it out so much, but more like give it a bit of a pressure. Allow my leg to move a bit as I have pressure with the ball, choosing a different spot. And so just really not so much the butt here, but more the side. Not on the leg, but the side of the butt. So where you have the hip bone, the meaty bits, you don't roll on bones because that's really uncomfortable. Find meaty bits, softer bits, or tense bits that can benefit from a bit of pressure. You can also just lean in and breathe. So as soon as you feel like, oh, this is too much and I'm tensing up, then you're doing too much. You can also do this against a wall. For me, at this time, it's okay to do it on the ground and give it my body weight, but sometimes it isn't. And it's interesting to move your leg up and down a bit so that if something happening in the muscles, or push the leg, this leg down into the ground. And just play a bit around with the ball and its pressure. And it's not so much, I mean, it is to kind of give you a massage and to soften the tissues, but it's actually more to bring your awareness to this area so that you can sense it, because I can sense this area now a lot better than before, because now I sense the areas of tension that are there, and then switch side. So it's not so much a purely a massage, because after this we're going to do some movement. So we're not just loosening everything up, we're loosening it up and then moving so that the space that we've created we can use and sense in the movement, and better bring awareness to the areas that we are moving to, in that way keep the space that we've created or make it easier to come back to it. This side has a few more spots that are a bit more intense. Then once you've explored the areas that you wanted to explore, and you can do this for quite some time, you can come back. Turn myself around. This done. And we're going to go back to first the movement. Bring the belt in, depending a bit. If your hip flexors were super active, then maybe just stick to no, let's just, yeah, bring the belt in anyway. Again, bring your hands to the hip flexors. Flexing the legs and then pushing the legs out into the belt. Noticing if this feels any different. If it's easier to kind of connect to this place here, where you just had the ball. It's easier to relax here. If the effort is coming from this area and the movement is happening in that direction. And then bring the block in. Do the same with the block in between the legs. As you squeeze it, sense how that feels now, if that feels any different. Does that feel different for your buttocks? Does it feel different for your lower back, belly, the leg? And then from there, you can remove both the belt and the block again. And we'll go back one more time to the rotation of the leg to notice whether that feels different. That movement is easier to connect with, if it's smoother, if it's more spacious, or not at all. It's kind of like, I don't know why we used the ball. It was just not very comfortable and it doesn't even, or maybe it doesn't do much for you now in this particular movement, but when you walk away after practice, maybe it does. Or maybe it still doesn't. And then this just, at the moment, isn't interesting to carry for you. So bring your foot back. Take a moment to notice your body after all that we've done. How do your legs feel? How does your pelvis feel? Your lower back, belly, torso, breath. Has anything changed compared to your first check-in? And with that, I hope you enjoyed the practice and hope you discovered something. And feel free to send me a message or an email or leave a comment below, and I will get back to you. And I wish you a beautiful week, You can follow the channel as well. Share it if you know people who could benefit from this. And I wish you a beautiful week and hope to see you again next time with the next practice.